Before I share some words of Torah with you this evening, I want to take a moment to just acknowledge, of course, Emily and I always love being on the Bima and sharing Shabbat with you, but we have the honor of being joined this Shabbat by Sammy Bray, our music intern, high school senior. This is not the first time you've seen her here, but we are always honored to have her with us. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. With that, though we know that life never really stops, Jewish time, in a way, took a breath this week. We are a people who pay attention to time. Shabbat comes each week. We mark this changing months and seasons, and the long arc of the High Holy Days has finally come to a close. It was technically last week, but now after settling back into a rhythm, we can finally exhale. As I mentioned a few moments ago, we are in the only month in the Hebrew calendar with no holidays in it. So what does that breath allow us to do? To slow down, to settle into the ordinary, to notice what's around us when life isn't marked by a holiday or a ritual. In short, it's to see the sacred in the everyday. It allows, for example, this Shabbat to be just that, just Shabbat. I'll never forget my first year as a student rabbi, wrapping up the High Holy Days. I served a congregation in Grand Junction, Colorado. It's a small town on the western slope of the state, just minutes from the Utah border. It was a lovely 10 days with them. Hard work, lots of new. I was so proud of my first High Holy Days season, acting as a rabbi. Was really cheered on by them, even when I made tons of mistakes. But I was exhausted by the end. When the holidays were done, I had a few spare days before having to go back to Los Angeles, and I had some friends in Denver. So I rented a car. Keep in mind, I was 23 at the time, so I had to pay that extra rental security fee because I was under 25. And I was given a rental car. Turns out in Grand Junction, you don't get to choose what car you get. So they gave me this giant red Jeep Wrangler. I had so much fun. I loved it. Anyways, I got into the car. I headed east through the mountains. If you've ever driven along Highway 70 in Colorado through the Rockies, you know how stunning it is. Every few miles, you round another bend, and the view takes your breath away. There's the mountains, there's the trees, there's the Colorado River winding below. After weeks of intensity, writing sermons, leading services, being present for others, that drive to me was not just fun, but it felt like a reset. It reminded me the very important lesson that sometimes connection with God doesn't happen in the sanctuary, but it happens out in the world. Here's the thing about that drive, right? I could have focused only on the road ahead. I could have focused only on my cool car. But instead, I found myself slowing down, taking it in, pulling over to the side of the road, and at one point, feeling something close, or maybe it was, awe. Our Torah portion this week is Parshat Noah. It gives us one of the earliest examples of awe in our tradition. The story's familiar, right? The story of Noah. The world has become so corrupt that God realized that the only answer was to wipe the world clean of all living things. God found that only Noah was righteous enough. So God told Noah, we know the story with the animals, to take two of every animal, two of every living thing, to bring it on this ark, and they would be the only ones to survive this giant flood. 40 days of rain, the flood ends, the waters begin to recede, and Noah steps out into a completely changed world. First, he sends out the dove comes back with the olive branch, but then a rainbow appears, a sign of hope and a symbol of God's covenant. The Torah says, I have set my bow in the clouds, and it shall serve as a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. So take a moment and picture it. Right? This giant storm, you come out, everything is still, all that is there is this rainbow. Not that different than when we sometimes see a beautiful rainbow in the sky now after a giant storm. But that rainbow marks the first time in the Torah when nature itself becomes revelation. It's the first time that awe, something seen, something experienced, reveals something divine. That's what makes this rainbow so powerful. It doesn't just remind us of our covenant with God, but it reminds us to see the world itself as sacred. Light, color, water, these simple things that come together and show us what's extraordinary and what might otherwise be ordinary. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel called this mindset radical amazement. You might have heard of this before. He taught that our goal should be to wake up each morning and look at the world as if nothing should be taken for granted. Everything, he wrote, is phenomenal and everything is incredible. For Heschel, it wasn't just about noticing beauty, but it's about cultivating a sense of wonder. He warned, and this is something that I find really fascinating, that as civilization advances, our ability to be amazed often declines. His writing said that mankind will not perish for want of information, but for want of appreciation. In other words, our survival, not just physically but spiritually, depends on our ability to be moved by the world around us. And the ability to be moved is, in itself, a form of prayer. It's not about words or rituals, it's about awareness. Recognizing that every part of creation, from mountains to puddles to the breath in our lungs, carries those traces of holiness. There's a story I love about a young boy who lived in a town near the edge of the forest. Every day, the story says, he would wander into the woods and stay there for about an hour before coming home. His parents were worried. So his father followed him one day and found him simply sitting among the trees. When the boy returned, the father asked, "So, what do you do out there in the woods every day?" The boy said, "I'm praying to God." The father smiled, a little bit relieved. He said, "That's wonderful, but you don't have to go out into the forest. You can pray to God anywhere, right here, because God is the same everywhere." "Yes," the boy said, "I know that. God is the same everywhere, but I'm not the same everywhere." Being in a state of awe or wonder, like we imagine this boy was, sitting amongst the trees, help us see more clearly and reminds us of how connected we are to something greater than ourselves. Moments of radical amazement do happen and will always happen around us. A breathtaking view, right? That song that stirs something within us, a moment of connection. But what makes these moments holy isn't that they find us, but it's that we see them, notice them, and recognize them for what they are. As in, it's not the rainbow's job to get our attention. It's our job to notice it, to let the light and the color and the sound and the silence, whatever we see out in the world, wake up something inside of us and let that sense of wonder and awe bring us closer to God. So this Shabbat, I pray that we each see something amazing, our own version of a rainbow, and that we let it awaken in us a sense of awe and wonder. A reminder that holiness isn't somewhere else. It's just waiting to be found. It's here, it's woven into the world. It just needs us to notice it. Shabbat Shalom.